Welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast with your host, Johnny Gorky. You have the power to overcome challenges and fears. Let my voice and the voice of many others show you how to transform these challenges into opportunities. To learn more about future podcasts and read episode show notes, check out my website at www.thepowerofyourvoice.com.
Welcome back to the Power of Your Voice podcast. This is episode 56. Today's guest is Bob Wheeler. As a man of true integrity with infectious energy, Bob Wheeler's crusade for personal growth has cross-pollinated with his accounting practice to create a new approach to personal finances. His passion is to help others gain insight about how their emotions trigger financial decisions. While strengthening his accounting practice, Bob has simultaneously pursued his love of satire, ventured into the realm of stand-up comedy. From his 30 years of helping clients, Bob has distilled a equation of warmth, humor, information, motivation, and budgeting directions that he offers to anyone with financial concerns. He is also the current CFO of the world-famous Comedy Store. Bob has climbed some of the highest mountains in the world and has hiked several smaller mountains in between with charm and humor. His experiences on the road, in office, or running a Greek marathon fed his wit as a stand-up comic and financial motivator. During this episode, we're going to talk about emotions and money, financial therapy, financial motivation, and so much more that all has to do with money. Let's get started. Hey, Bob, welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast. It's great to have you on today, sir.
Good to be here, Johnny. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. So I want to dive into, you are a money expert. Now, how was your own experience with money as a child?
It was terrible.
Terrible.
It was terrible. I was not good with money. And I didn't even know I was good with accounting until I got into high school and somebody told me to get into it. But my parents didn't have a lot of money. Often borrowed my allowance. I wasn't really taught how to save. My grandparents, on my mom's side, my mom was an only child, so they told us if we liked them better, they would give us money. So we liked them much better than my other grandparents. And so I did learn that money could be used to manipulate and to buy things or buy people, but that was about all I learned, not much else. So it was a struggle.
Now, how has any of those painful experiences kind of helped you?
Well, I think my financial journey, which the struggle was, I grew up in a small town in Tennessee. My parents didn't have a lot of money. We had a big family. I had 5 kids. And I ended up getting a scholarship to a good school, Rhodes College. And a lot of the kids there were very wealthy. I was on scholarship. So I was watching people with lots of money that just had it. And I was like, wow, this is a whole new world. Then I got my CPA license. I was originally going to be a lawyer, met a few lawyers. I didn't like them and decided something besides that. I was good at accounting. It was what I took for an easy A. And I got my CPA license and was still not doing well financially. I was giving great advice, but I was watching people, as I was learning, make a whole lot better financial decisions than me. People that were staff were buying houses and I was still in debt. So having to then do a self journey and really look back at what were the blocks and the self-sabotage, because money I found wasn't just about 2 + 2 is 4, but all the stuff that I learned as a child sort of tainted it with my emotional perspective on it.
Yeah, because it's interesting how some people, they grow up, their parents are poor, and unfortunately, they keep that mindset of their parents throughout their entire life, and then they carry on to their own children, and then it stays in generations and generations where you were able to overcome that, which is just amazing.
I think we do carry a lot of our family history with us when it comes to money and beliefs. I do know that a lot of my clients that are successful still don't believe they're successful. They still have a little doubt in the back of their head. I know when I was 5, there was an incident that happened with my family, and I just made this conclusion that I have to do everything on my own. Nobody's going to help me. And so from 5 years old, I'm like, I got it. Don't offer to help because I know you won't. And so I sort of went with that for a while. It served me in some ways because it made me very determined to accomplish things. And then it didn't serve me in that I didn't know how to ask for help. from other people.
Yeah, well, and that's usually the big thing. And I think a lot of stuff comes from childhood. Like I can speak for myself. It's like, my dad worked in a factory. My mother didn't. We lived in a nice house and everything, but my dad, he made like $10 an hour. That's it. But yet we had a decent house. We lived in a middle-class neighborhood. We had 2 cars. I don't know how my dad did it, to be honest. But one of the most painful experiences I witnessed with money is one day my mother, she asked for some money for something. I don't even know what it was. I was probably like 7. And my dad got so angry because she asked for something. He literally took his wallet and threw it at my mother and said, "What do you think I am, made out of money?" So I kind of grew up as a kid, like money is painful. Money causes pain. It's a bad thing. Like, don't talk about money, because anytime you talk about money, it's just going to cause pain. And I'm like, growing up, I always associated money. Like, I don't even want money, because if I'm going to have money, it's going to cause pain. So I'd rather just be poor. And then as we go to realize, you know what, with money, you can do a lot of great things with it. It doesn't have to be a bad thing.
It doesn't have to be a bad thing. But what's interesting when I work with people in workshops is they'll tell me rich people are greedy, rich people are selfish, and then they'll say, but I want to be rich. And then there's this, right? I want to be rich, but I don't want to be them. So therefore I won't be rich because I don't know how to navigate staying in my integrity or in my goodness and making money. But lots of wealthy people are actually really nice people, and you can do great things in the world. You can do great things for yourself, and you can help other people when you have financial freedom.
Well, and that's the thing, because, one thing I realize is as we get older, we change our mindsets. We realize, you know what? If you're a good person and you're poor, when you have lots of money, you can still be a great person, even maybe be more giving. If you're a bad person, poor, and you're really mean and angry, when you have money, you're just probably more angry.
Yeah, I would actually agree that the more money you have, the more it amplifies your true self, your true nature. And it's interesting. Some people still, when they have millions of dollars, can come from a scarcity mindset that it's the last dollar they're ever going to see. And I got to hold on to everything. And I meet other people that don't make that much money, and they're handing money away left and right. And one of my comic friends who sort of inspired me to write the book, she would be broke, and we'd be out and she'd see a homeless person and she'd pull $20 out of her wallet. And I'd say, "Sean, you don't have $20 to give." She goes, "I have a place to live and my life's better than theirs. I can give them $20. And so it made me stop and say, wait a minute, she can give from a place, it doesn't matter how much is in her bank, because she's coming from a place of, I've got abundance, I'm grateful for what I have, and I'm going to help other people whenever I can.
Well, exactly. And the big thing is, do you have enough money? Can you pay your bills? Do you have food? Do you have everything? Do you have love? Yeah, you have everything. So I'm like, if you give away $20, and usually the thing I've always realized too is, like, when you give away something, like when you give your time or when you give away money, people give you their time. When you give away money, it's like people, they call you up and they want you to work for them, and just, it always comes back to you. It's not because you're asking for it, but it just magically, it always works that way, which is really great. Now, one thing I wanted to go into with you, I was listening to some of your podcasts that you did, and I know you threw yourself into mountain climbing, martial arts, comedy, and all sorts of things that probably would scare the heck out of most people to do. Like, just, there's no way I could do all this stuff that Bob has done. Now, what are some of the greatest lessons you learned through all those experiences?
Well, I'll tell you, the main thing that took me towards all of those were things I was afraid of. And so I, for whatever reason, had this internal compass that said, go towards what you fear. I was afraid to fight. I was a small guy, and I was always worried I was going to get, like, I never thought I was small until I got older, and everybody's like, "You're small." And I'm like, oh, my friends are all like 2 feet taller than me. I guess I'm small. But learning how to fight, I actually, for a while, I was like, "You want to fight me?" I almost went a little overboard. But I learned how to do kickboxing. I climbed high mountains. I'm terrified of heights, and it can be really scary when looking down 15,000 feet. The same thing with public speaking. I could barely, people see me now and don't believe this, but I was sitting I went to my first therapy group, and I'm sitting there and they go around and everybody's like, "My name is so-and-so." And I'm like, "My name is Bob." It's just like, what is wrong with you? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm terrified. I don't even know if I'm going to say my name right. I'm terrified. And so getting up and learning how to talk, and I mean, I had the ability, but I had the skill set, but I was internally terrified. Everything was a life or death choice. Having lunch, am I going to die? Talking to somebody, am I going to die? And that was sort of my metric for everything until I really started getting more comfortable and gaining the confidence to actually stand up and be seen and not take myself out.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, for example, before I started this podcast, I decided to join Toastmasters. I used to stutter severely, so doing a whole podcast was way over my comfort zone. But I was like, the only way I'm going to get good at this is to go to Toastmasters, just talking. That's the only way we're going to get good at anything in life. You have to practice. And there was one lady, she gave a presentation. Dang, she did such an incredible job. But you could see her, she was just shaking as she was speaking. And when she was done, I was like, that is seriously one of the best speeches I've ever heard. And she's like, oh my God, I felt like I was going to die. I'm like, why do we have all these fears? A lot of people have these fears of things that they don't want to do. But when they do it, they do such a great job.
Yeah, I think the fear, something about the fear itself is scarier than actually doing the thing. I love Toastmasters. I was terrified even when you had to tally who said or saying the thought for the day, or setting the timer. Like, it's great because they give you little baby steps to help get you comfortable. I love Toastmasters. So
it's a great organization. So I was going to ask you, talk about mountain climbing. So I heard that you went up the first base of Mt Everest base camp, which I believe is like 17,900.
It's about 19. It's different books say it's different places because it's about halfway up, and the mountain is about 29,000 feet. The first time I went to base camp, we didn't make it because we had a guide who was sort of anti-American, and he purposely delayed our trip so that it was too hard, and we had to get back. The second time we went, though, it was amazing. I actually got up there before this last big earthquake, so the base camp that I went to no longer exists because of the avalanche. Really? Yeah, but there's something about being in a mountain and like potential death. It's more mental because by base camp you're not holding on by a rope. You're hiking, but it's extreme hiking. And get altitude sickness. You can fall. But there's something about being out in the elements that I love, and it's me against nature, and just seeing how far I can push myself.
Well, it's that. I mean, if you look at pictures for anybody who's never been there, which I haven't, but the pictures is just absolutely gorgeous. Now,
stunning.
Now, I wanted to ask you, how long did it take? And how did you prepare yourself for your mindset, and what kind of challenges did you face, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, the main thing is doing a lot of hiking, a lot of anything that's got to do with breathing, because you really have to be able to breathe when you get up there, and just taking the time to be in decent health, but also knowing that you have a healthy mental attitude. I have been on a few extreme trips, so I knew how to be prepared in terms of, I had my case of baby wipes, like 20 packs of baby wipes, because toilet paper is not to be found. Just making sure whenever I travel to remote places or to developing countries, I always take lots of peanut butter granola bars so I can have my protein in case I don't want to eat, caterpillars. So I try to prepare for that. And then when we got there, actually, this last time we went to make it to base camp, the group of people I brought with me, after the first day, everybody looked at me and said, Bob, let's quit. This is freaking insane. And I'm like, no. We've got like 9 more days to get to base camp. And let's quit. And, both times that I went, because first time I started to get altitude sickness, and I thought, man, I just spent $10,000. I'm freaking making it. I'm going to go as far as I can go. I'm not going to sit in a tent at the bottom of the hill. So here's everybody saying, let's quit. And all I could do was, I said, let's do this. Let's agree to hike for 1 hour, and every hour, let's renegotiate and decide if we're going to go another hour. And so we agreed to just do the hike in 1 hour increments. And then every hour we'd vote to continue going. And after about 3 days, we started doing 2 hour increments. And it didn't feel so monumentous It felt like, okay, that's doable. We're going to hike for an hour instead of looking over in that hill and going, we're going to be there in 4 days. Jesus, So I think that was the biggest thing, is just really taking out bite-sized, doable actions was really, really helpful. And then keeping a positive attitude. My sister went with me on this last one. And growing up, we used to be able, because we had a big family and it was a small town and a couple other big families, we used to be able to do all the musical plays in the town. And so we knew all these songs, and we're just singing, and we're hiking up the trail, and people would come down there going, what are you guys, you're singing, you're at like 18,000 feet. We're like, yeah, we're happy. It just sort of helped keep our minds off the fact that our feet hurt, that we could barely breathe. And just carrying a backpack with maybe a cookie in it felt like it was incredibly heavy. You get a little spoiled because the Sherpas are actually doing all the work, and you're like, oh, it's so hard. Here, carry my water.
They're used to this every day.
And they're used to it, man. They're walking barefooted, smoking a cigarette, 20 cases of Coke on their head.
Really?
Oh my God. Jeez. I would not want that job.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
So you guys were able to accomplish this in 9 days, but you set small goals.
Yeah. It takes 9 days to get from the beginning of the park to the base camp. And then if you want to go beyond that, you really need about 3 months, because after base camp, you have to hike up each day and back down, hike up. Because what you do is you have to learn to acclimate. And once you get past 19,000 feet, it gets much more difficult to breathe.
So on average, it takes about a half a year to get to the top of Mount Everest?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, and $100,000, I think, is what the current license is to go beyond base camp. Hence the other reason base camp was a good stopping point.
Yeah, I think it'd be cheaper just hop in an airplane and say, I flew over Mount Everest.
I flew over. Exactly.
Does that still count?
First class.
Now, because you're a money expert, there are some people who might be listening and they might be wondering, if someone was about to graduate from high school, or maybe, well, I'll just say high school for now. You have a lot of kids who they're about to graduate from high school. What is some kind of really good financial information that you would give them, and kind of information that you wish you were probably given when you were about 17, 18 years old, would you say?
I wish I had been told to be wary of credit cards. Nowadays, kids getting out of high school, kids getting out of college, people hand over credit cards left and right and try and get people into debt. That's the first thing. The second thing I wish people had told me is learn to not spend beyond your means. Like, spend within your means. If you don't have the money, don't spend it. And that was not something that I learned for a while, because in this society, media tells you spend, have it now, don't wait, don't delay, get your gratification. So I sort of had this entitlement of, I got to have it now. I deserve it. And so I wish that people had just said, be a little bit more maybe appreciative of what you have, and be a little bit more honoring in money that comes your way, instead of just taking it for granted, like it'll just keep coming.
Yeah, well, and that's especially good advice, especially for this generation too, because back, I remember probably around mid-2000s, credit card interest, it was probably like maybe 9-10%. It wasn't that crazy high.
Right.
But speaking of, the advice you just gave, it's like same thing with my parents. They never explained anything about credit cards. I had a credit card when I was in my early 20s. I charged like maybe $5,000. I carried that balance for several years. You pay crazy interest on that. Crazy. And it's important for kids to realize, if you are listening to that, you buy a pair of shoes for $100. By the time you probably pay for those shoes, you probably paid $150, if not more. And now what I do is, and I'm sure you would recommend, I pay my balance off every single month in full. I carry zero debt. Unfortunately, I learned this from my mother. My mother, she still carries her debt. And now I think her interest is like 27%. My God, that's high.
It's crazy. And it's interesting when I'm talking to clients and I'll say, what's your credit card debt? They'll say, oh, it's like 40,000. What are you paying in interest? Oh, I don't know. It's on the statement. You should look at it. And then I'll say, here's your homework. Go back and list it out, debt card by card, and list out the interest rates. And they call me back. Oh my God, I'm paying 23%. I'm paying 27. Yeah. You want to keep paying that? No. That's for a lot of people, when you start to see those numbers and actually think about it, it makes you think twice about charging groceries or charging necessities where you're going to be paying on that forever.
Yeah, well, I think it all goes back to the childhood, the fear of money. I know there are people who literally do this. I'm in debt. I'm scared of debt. I'm scared of money. They
Yeah.
don't even look at their credit card balance because just
Yeah.
the glance of it, just like it's scary. It freaks them out, causing anxiety issues. But you have to be real to yourself. You need to look at that stuff. It's important.
You do have to look at it. And I think a lot of people today, because everything is electronic, I can say to somebody, how much is in your bank account? And they're like, let me look online. Like, well, wait a minute. Do you have checks outstanding? Is there a big electronic transfer going out tomorrow? I don't know. If it's there, I can spend it. If it's not, I have to stop and use a credit card. So I think the more we can look at that stuff, what I encourage people to do, I started doing this a couple of years ago, is I get my clients to go online, look at their bank account, and start having conversations with their money. Like, hey guys and gals, like go out and get some friends and tell them to come hang out here. Let's get a whole bunch of you and just make it playful so that money isn't so serious and overwhelming, but to just try to be more playful.
Now, what do you think is the big difference when you're talking about like socioeconomic status? There's a mindset for someone who grows up poor in poverty. And then there's also mindset with money for people who grew up in wealth. What is the difference?
What I've experienced, a lot of people that grow up with wealth tend to always think that it's going to be there. If they haven't been educated about it, they just assume that it's going to be there. Like I remember this person was telling me, I'm not getting my inheritance until I'm 21. And it would just be so much easier. My mom used to fight with me that I would spend $5,000 a month on my credit card. And I was like, Mom, if I could just have my inheritance now, we wouldn't have to have this fight. And I was like, oh yeah, we should all just get our multi-million-dollar inheritance when we're 18. That would make life so much easier. And she was just incensed. But with somebody coming up that maybe didn't have that kind of wealth, I think it's a lot more scarce. They're a lot more appreciative when $300 comes their way. I do actually think there's a little bit more gratitude, even though there also might be that scarcity, because they're not just rolling in dough. But I do also find that whether you're rich or poor, there's still fear about deserving. There's still a fear that somebody's going to find out that you're a fraud, or that you're not what you seem to be. And like I know people that have their family lost all their money, and they were told by their parents, just pretend like we're rich because we can't let anybody know. And so they're going to school knowing that they're in complete debt, and they're like, I hope nobody finds out because I don't want to embarrass my dad. So there's still fear and anxiety around money, regardless of what socioeconomic group we grow up in.
What's like the best way to overcome that stuff? Because even if you have a lot of money, like I remember I was listening to someone's podcast and they were interviewing somebody and they were just sharing a story. Apparently there was this guy, he was worth like, let's say $10 billion. He's worth a lot of money. He lost like $9 billion.
Right.
$9 billion. He still had $1 billion left. The guy commits suicide.
Yeah.
You have $1 billion. Yeah, you lost 9. It does suck, let's be honest here. But you still have $1 billion.
Right.
You'll never have to work for the rest of your life. I mean, but he was so caught up on that $9 billion that he lost, he literally commits suicide.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, and I know I was guilty of this too, a lot of us base our value based on our accomplishments. So if I've got $1 billion and I used to have 9, I've failed at my accomplishments. If I had $500 now I have $50,000, I've succeeded at my accomplishment. So taking the best vacation, driving the nicest car, making the most amount of money, that's where sometimes we seem to put the value, at least society does, even though maybe one-on-one people are like, I could care less how much money you make. I just want to be in connection. But I know that for me, when I was younger, it was about my accomplishments. That would get my parents' attention. Okay, great. You made A's. You're supposed to. You need to do something more exciting. Like show us that you have value. I wasn't enough just to show up and go, hey, here's me. So I think that's where, that guy that, there's been a lot of cases like that where somebody lost a lot of money. They still have a lot. They're like, I'm out of here. I'm a failure. It's right. And so our values right there, I think, need to be reprioritized. When we're thinking that we have no value at $1 billion, instead of actually seeing that we have a family, or that we have friends that love us, or we have experiences from traveling the world, or we're in service to other people, like that to me is abundance, is being able to look at all that and say, man, I've got a good life.
Yeah, because relationships are the most valuable thing. And going into that, a while ago you went to what, Tanzania?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that experience and how did that change your belief system about money?
Yeah. So when I went to Tanzania, I was driving my nice little Mercedes. I was taking my little trip to Africa, and I was doing all my cool little things. And I got over there, and these people, the average income over there was $100 a year, $100 for a whole year. And they were incredibly happy. And they were all like, oh, Mr. Bob, tell everybody to come visit us if you liked it. And I kept going, how are you happy? Like, you don't have showers. You're living in, huts made out of straw. You don't have nice cars. You don't have a DVD player back then. And like all these things. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me, because I was taught your value is all the things that you have, your material things. And it may not have been consciously, but that's the message I got. When I got back home and I was so excited to be in my little Mercedes and all those things, I couldn't get over the fact that these people were incredibly happy and I was not incredibly happy. And it really made me stop and search about what was important to me. And it really led me on this path to gratitude, and really sort of taught me to be a little bit more humbled, that like, I'm not all that and more. And my accomplishments, yeah, great. But who am I as a person, and how do I impact other people, and what connections do I have, and am I making a difference? And it really changed my perspective. I don't make decisions based on how much money I'm going to make. I'd rather lose money if it means giving up my integrity. I'd rather lose money if it means losing a friendship. It doesn't mean I don't have boundaries. It doesn't mean I don't set parameters. But I'm really not working from, I hope I can just figure out a way to take $2 more from this person, because like, that's just not the person I want to be. And so Tanzania was really the place that taught me about being humbled and grateful.
Yeah, I've had the exact same experience, not in Africa, but going like Central America too. It's like, sometimes we think, all this materialistic stuff is really going to make us happy. But then when you go to other places where they don't really have much and you see how happy they are, you're like, dang, why am I complaining? Why am I miserable when I have all these nice things when they don't have anything, but they're so happy? But if you really look at it, it all goes back to like childhood, because I have my youngest child is 22 months old. My daughter, she knows nothing about materialistic stuff, at least yet. But babies, toddlers, they're so happy. They come up to you, they give you hugs, they give you kisses, they're always laughing and they're silly and they're just so happy. That's how life is supposed to be. I mean, that's how it is supposed to be. But then unfortunately we get stuck on TV and media and social media, and you see all these things that other people have. And then we think that we need to have those things too to be happy. And then when you do get them, you realize they really don't make you that happy anyways.
No. And what was interesting in Africa, my mom was an Avon salesperson. So she gave me like 2 bags of samples,
Nice.
right? So there's Avon earrings and little bottles of scented stuff. And I took that with me and I would hand it out to the women. You would have thought I'd bought them a Mercedes.
Yeah.
They were like, oh my God, I got lipstick. And then when I would throw away containers, like let's say, you have a mouthwash bottle and I'd throw it away, they would take those out of the trash. And they'd say, I could use this, right? They would use everything over and over and recycle. And again, it taught me to like appreciating what you have instead of like, yeah, let me get another one. Yeah, there's more where that came from, but really valuing each thing.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things, I think, is when it comes to taking vacations and traveling. Now, I know back in the days, you believe that vacations was only for rich people. How
That's
did
right.
you change that?
Well, so what happened was I'd never really traveled. And interestingly enough, when I got out of college and also when I got out of high school, my grandparents had saved up and given me like $3,000 when I got out of high school. And I think I got $5,000 when I got out of college. Neither of those times did I think to take a trip to Europe or do anything, because that's for rich people, even though all my friends were flying to the Cayman Islands and stuff on a regular basis. A friend of mine said, hey, let's go to Greece. You want to go to Greece with me and run this marathon? That's the original track. It's the original course.
Nice.
And I said, well, that sounds really cool, but I'm not rich. And only rich people go to Europe. And my friend looked at me and goes, what? And I was like, yeah, no, only rich people travel. Like, I'm 25 years old and I believe it. And he just looks at me and goes, you're an idiot. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the rule. I'm like, I can't go. And he goes, do you have this? Do you have $4,000? I'm like, yeah. Well, then we're going to Greece. And I was terrified. I mean, I had to get a passport, and I'm like, I was scared to exchange the money. Like, I was like, what if I make a mistake? What if they arrest me? I was terrified. And I mean, it was amazing. I mean, my first trip, Greece, I was looking at the ruins of Athens. I went to these islands of Delphi, and man, it was the best experience. And when I got to the end of the marathon, we ran that race, and I just sat down and just started crying. And because one of the guys, I was just standing there, and he's like, he goes, it's okay. And then I just broke down, I started crying, and I'm like, I don't know what that was. And he said, well, you just ran 26 miles without really training. Because I ran, but I'd never really trained for that. And I'd never been out of the country. And it was just this life-changing experience of like, I just broke through all these barriers that I thought were never going to be possible for me. And so that really was my journey into, I'm going to start traveling. I met this woman and we started traveling together, and it opened up my world like crazy.
And it does, because I mean, basically, I grew up pretty much like you. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A vacation for our family was driving an hour to Chicago.
Yeah.
That was a family vacation. That was like going to another country.
Right.
And it's like you grew up your entire life, oh, only rich people go to college, only rich people do this. And you start to believe that. And then like someone's like, yeah, I graduate college. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be your friend. You're one of those rich, uptight people. I'm the first person in my entire family to go to college and graduate. I'm like, I'm just a regular person. Thank you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change people. They believe that stuff, but it's really not true at all.
It's a mindset. And I think the more that we can start to empower ourselves, the more we can actually have the freedom to do whatever we want. And I think there were a lot of things that I didn't do because I thought I wasn't capable or I was scared. And now, I'll get up and do something and somebody might say, well, you didn't do that perfectly. Okay. But I still got up and did it. Like, I don't have to do it perfectly. I'm not trying. I don't want to present. Let me just get up and be bad. But at least I got up.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because the thing is, if you wait till you're perfect to do it, you probably would never do it.
Never going to happen.
And the only way you're going to get better at it is by practicing.
Yeah.
You have to at least try once before you're going to even get better. I mean, it's just like anything. For example, you're also a comedian. I'm sure the first time you went on stage wasn't the best, but now you're really good at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, the first year went really, really well. I'd been doing sketch comedy. And again, I was doing sketch comedy in class. And then a really good friend of mine said, well, you've been doing all these classes. When are you going to actually do something? And I was like, what? They're like, why don't you get on a stage and do something? Let somebody see what you got. I'm like, okay, sure. I'm like, oh, well, there's nothing, and then here's a court. I went up and auditioned for this comedy troupe and I got in. I'm like, how did I get in? I'm not even funny. What's going on? And they made a mistake. And so I was doing that. I started doing the comedy stand-up. It went really well the first year. And then I got booked for this show. It was supposed to be very family-oriented comedy. And I was very, Disney kind of comedy. And it was at this nice club. Everybody was doing dark blue humor, dirty, everything under the sun, just foul-mouthed. And the audience was loving it. And I was the last comic to come out doing my little Disney stuff. And it was the most painful. It was like a 5-minute set. It was the most painful. It felt like 10 hours of just silence, of people just going, who is this idiot? And I'm just like, okay. And I couldn't tell a joke to save my life for like the next 6 months. I'd get up, nothing, but I still just kept getting up and nobody would laugh. And there was this one woman had seen me bomb and she'd see me at these other events and she'd say, well, you must have a really good tape because I saw you at the club. I'm like, yeah, well, sometimes I'm funny, lady. And then one night I went to a coffee house with a friend and there was like 4 people in the audience. And I told a joke and people just started laughing. And all of a sudden I could tell the alphabet and people are like, oh my God, that's the best alphabet I ever heard, and I'm like, okay, wow. And I just sort of got back and you just got to keep getting up. And I think the biggest thing about comedy is it's not the responsibility of the audience to make you feel good about yourself. It's your job to get up there and be comfortable with who you are and let them just have a night off from their own lives and just be able to laugh. So that's sort of the place where I come from when I'm doing comedy.
I'm sure also knowing your audience, because, just like you're saying, if you have kind of like a George Carlin kind of audience, and then
right,
you're up there and it's like family, there's a big difference.
Big difference. Yeah, I remember going to a recovery house one night, not realizing, and my jokes are a bit dark, and I'm from the South, so I always have a couple of sleeping with my cousin jokes and a couple jokes about alcoholism. And here I'm at a recovery house where the audience is a lot of people that have been abused and a lot of people have alcoholic problems. And I open up and I went, oh my, I was able to make a joke out of it because I realized how badly I put my foot in my mouth. And it was all good. They all gave me love. But yeah, know your audience.
Yeah.
Know your audience.
So we were talking a little bit of high school too. Mm-hmm. Now, especially with this whole this pandemic that we're going to, it's really affecting a lot of people, especially college students, because usually, okay, I'm in college, I'm going to go to school for 4 years or 6 years or however long, and then once I graduate, I'm going to do an internship, and then I can work here, and everything's going to be fine. But things are different now. What would you share with someone who's about to go to college, or maybe they're about to graduate college? What should they do about finances and investments?
Well, in terms of looking at the college, I think it's important to decide do I really want to spend the extra money to go into debt if I go to this college, or am I better off going to a community college because I'm going to get the same courses for much less? Like, really look at the value and decide if the prestige of the college is more important than the debt you're going to accumulate. I would look at scholarships. I ended up getting a lot of scholarships that I didn't even know that were there, but I did my homework. And like, there's a lot of money out there if you do the work. But I think it's important to really be smart about your finances, because student loan debt is so ridiculous these days. And people think, oh, I'll just get out of it. No big deal. And it accumulates so quickly. So that's the main thing I would do, is really look at, am I getting value for this? And what am I going to do with it? If I'm going to go and I want to learn basket weaving, do I need to go to Harvard and spend $300,000 to weave a basket? Maybe I'm better off at the local community college. They've got Santa Monica College out here has amazing accounting courses and all kinds of stuff. 2 + 2 is 4, no matter what building you're in. Educational, it's the same information. So I would really focus on that. And then I think the other thing to do right now is, I know I would imagine if I was going to college right now, I'd be sort of annoyed that I don't get to go have the experience of being on campus. But again, I would go back to at least I'm able to get some education. At least I can keep moving forward and just try and find the positive aspects through all of this and try to find the silver lining in, wow, I'm having to do it a different way than I had originally anticipated.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that's very important too is, I don't know exactly how students can always look at this, but in my experiences, a lot of the smaller schools that a lot of people are probably even haven't heard of, the professors that teach at those colleges actually work at the bigger schools as well. Like, for example, right. I live in Atlanta. One of our best medical schools here in Georgia is Emory. And
right.
Then we have Georgia Tech. They're very good at technology. And then we have Georgia State. So they have really good people in economics and accounting and all that kind of stuff. So where I went to school was $20,000. Yeah. Go to Emory, 80 to 100,000, if not more.
Yeah.
Georgia State, probably about 60 or 70. Georgia Tech, probably close to 100. Now you can get the exact same education that you pay $20,000 at those other schools because those professors from those schools teach at your school. So
Right.
I had those professors at my school teaching me the same classes they teach at those schools, which I'm like, dang, this is really good. And the classes were a lot smaller too. You
Right.
just have to do your research though.
Yeah, absolutely. Do a little bit of research. And I think you can get an amazing education in the field that you want without having to spend all the money.
Yeah, yeah, because our dean of our business school, guy went to Harvard.
Yeah.
I mean, we have people at Harvard, Yale, Princeton. I mean, and they're deans at our school, which I'm like, dang, this is great. Only thing is, I don't think a lot of people realize that stuff. And at the end of the day, most places that you apply for a job, they're not going to say, what college did you go to? Oh, you didn't go to Harvard? You didn't go to Yale? I'm sorry, we're not going to hire you. Most of the time,
Right.
they don't even care.
And I've also found they don't ask you if you were the valedictorian or they're just saying, did you get the degree? It doesn't say, well, he was a poor student or he didn't aim high. It just says he completed everything or she completed everything. And so, I mean, certainly go and get good grades. I ended up I got a scholarship to Rhodes College, and I knew I probably wasn't going to make straight A's because it was a very academically challenging school. But I knew if I went to UT, University of Tennessee, I probably would have made straight A's, but I probably would have been an alcoholic. I probably wouldn't have learned anything, and I would have just coasted through it. There's I don't know, 100,000 people that go to the UT. Rhodes College, when I went there were 1,000 students. My teachers were watching me. The faculty was watching me. I had to behave, and I did well, but I think because I had a small college.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, what do you want to get out of this experience? Because most people are only going to go probably once anyways. So you want to get a good experience, and especially if you're going to pay for yourself like I did. I made sure I got really good grades because my mom and daddy weren't going to pay for anything if I failed it.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And the main reason I picked the college I went to, you had to write a paper in every class you took. So even if you were taking a science class, you had to write a thesis at the end of, not a thesis, but you had to write a 10-page essay. And people are like, why would you do that? That's so stupid. And I said, because I want to be a really good writer. And if I have to write an essay in every class that I take at least once, if not 2 or 3 times, plus when I graduated, I had to write a senior paper that was like 50 pages. I didn't consider myself a good writer, but I was forced to write. Again, not something that I wanted to do, but I thought that it would serve me later in life. And so I'm glad that I made that choice instead of picking something that would have been easier, because in the long run, it served me better.
Learning how to write, learning how to read. These are skill sets that you can never be perfect at it, but it's not something that, you constantly want to do better at. So yeah, that is definitely a good thing. And you write all the time. You may not write with a piece of paper and pencil, but you're still typing. So it's the same principle.
It's the same thing. Absolutely.
Now, I want to ask you, so Bob, why do you feel the majority of people also probably need financial therapy, especially here in the United States?
Well, so my experience has been, I've done a lot of workshops with people, and what always comes up is that people are ashamed of their financial choices, and they're ashamed people are going to find out that they made bad choices. And the other thing is, people think they're the only one making bad choices. So there's this isolation. Most people do not run around with their friends and say, oh my God, you'll never just believe it, I filed bankruptcy last week. And oh my God, I had to steal a bunch of money from my retirement plan so that I could pay for this car that I wanted to have so people would be impressed. And oh, by the way, my kids are in so much debt. We don't do that. We're like, yeah, life is great. See my fancy car, and so we're trying to present in a way that's not really the truth, a lot of people. And I think that if more people could just be honest with saying, you know what, I can't do that today. That's beyond my budget. If I had tried to pretend with all my friends that were flying off to the Cayman Islands and I'm like, oh yeah, let me put that on the card, I would have had so much debt, because for them, it was no big deal. Mommy and daddy paid for it. But to be able to say, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, I'm going to take a pass. I'm not going to do that today. So I find that there's a lot of financial shame. And when I get people together and they start realizing, oh, you too? Oh my God, you had some experience as a kid. Oh my God, you didn't have, you got made fun of because you had to get the meal at school, or you didn't have the nice clothes that everybody else had, or you didn't get to take the senior trip that somebody else got to take. Like, there's just a lot of shame around that. And then we blame our parents because, well, why couldn't they provide for me? This is embarrassing. I'm not keeping up with the Joneses. And there's a lot of peer pressure when you're in high school and college. At least that was my experience of fitting in. All right. I want to fit in. I want people to like talk to me. And so we keep our financial stuff hidden so that people will assume better things about us instead of us telling the truth and then them know who we really are.
Yeah, well, one thing I think a lot of people do, especially based on people's careers, like, for example, I have a few friends of mine who are doctors, and I'm like, yeah, I never really asked them, but I assumed, well, they make really good money. But I noticed a lot of them just drive basic practical cars.
Right.
And,
right.
I was having a conversation with my friend, and he's like, yeah, I make decent money, but man, I'm like $200,000 in debt. Literally, it's like, I'll probably be working for the next 20 years just to pay off these dang loans. And to be honest with you, if I would have known I was going to be this deep in debt, I probably would have picked something else. I mean, for some people, they're probably better off making $60,000 a year and have zero debt than making $100,000 and then making, paying a lot more taxes and then being deep in debt where they're literally working for the next 20 years just to take care of that debt because there's a lot of interest on it too.
Yeah. And, that reminds me, talking about having a financial plan and having money and all that stuff. There was a UPS guy that used to come by my office, and he was a really smart guy, and we would talk. And I just enjoyed when he would come by and we talk. And one day he came in and he said, well, I'm retiring. And I'm like, dude, you're not even 50. And he goes, yeah, I know. And I thought to myself, well, you've just wasted. Why are you working this job? You're wasting your life. So I said, you're retiring. What, tell me what's going on. He said, well, when I got out of high school, I wanted to get married, and we had a couple kids, and I knew that the most important thing to me was to be at their baseball games and all of the events, because I wasn't going to get to have them forever because I knew they'd eventually grow up. So I took this job working as a delivery guy because I'm retiring with a full pension. My kids have just gone off to college, and now I get to do all the things that I didn't do earlier. And I have no debt, and I've got full pension. And now I'm actually going to go out and have the most fun of my life. And I got to have all those years with my kids that I wouldn't trade for anything. And I looked at him and I went, that's brilliant. Like, I said, here I was judging you, thinking you were wasting your time, and you had a purpose and a plan the entire time. He just wasn't running around telling everybody what it was. He was just busy executing it.
That's very smart, because there are ways where you might not make a lot of money in whatever career you're in, but if you know what to do with your money, like, for example, obviously I wish I would have bought some Tesla stock. But
yeah.
There are some people, like, maybe they might make $2,000 a month, not much, but they take $100 every single month and they put in a stock market.
Yeah.
But they research those stocks. Yeah. And eventually those stocks could be worth several $1 million if they play their cards right and they really do the research. Where other people, they might make really good money, but they spend just as much as they bring in. So really, they're house rich, they're car rich, but they're really kind of poor.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're always on the treadmill trying to keep up and just spinning their wheels instead of actually stopping, relaxing, and not worrying.
Because I realize it doesn't really matter how much money you make if you don't have any.
Exactly.
We see that, and especially you over there in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in Los Angeles. There are people who probably make $5 million a year. That's good money. Yeah. But if you spend $6 million a year, how much money do you really have?
Well, and that's happening right now. A lot of my clients and friends in entertainment, they're making $1 million, $500,000. They've got $10 in the bank. When everything's shut down, they don't have that cash flow anymore, and they don't have a savings, and they don't have any kind of safety net. And there's a lot of scared people.
Yeah, that is definitely scary. Now, this is an interesting subject, but I know there are a few people who are, they're getting, what is it, the pandemic unemployment.
Yeah.
So some of them are making more money not working than are working.
That's right.
And I know there's some people who are doing really good things. Like one, I heard there was a lady, she was mentioning, yeah, I'm making really good money. I'm actually making more. What I've been doing is when I get my payments, I'm making 2 payments towards my car, which I'm like, that's very smart. So for somebody who's going through this pandemic and they're doing okay currently, what would you suggest that they do with this extra money, would you say?
Well, I think people need to, if you've already paid most of your bills, start putting that in a savings account. Even though the interest rate isn't that great, put some of that money away and get in the habit. I think a lot of people have not gotten in the habit of saving. They're going to do it when they get a big payoff or a special bonus. So right now, even if it's $50 or $20, that extra money, put it in a savings account that you're not going to touch, so that when things get better, or if something comes up, there's a car repair or something you didn't plan on, you've got this cushion of money that's just sitting there for a rainy day. Start to put savings as one of your monthly expenses. That's what I would do if I had extra money coming in from that. I'd make sure I was paying down my credit card. If you weren't already at zero credit card debt, which is a great place to be, I agree. I had a lot of debt for a long time, and it feels so much better not. And I think the other thing that people should do right now is take a look at what you're spending on. Do I really need all the premium cable channels? Look at your cell phone bill. Is there anything appearing on there that you shouldn't have paid for? I remember one of my employees got hooked on Candy Crush. I don't know if you, and she came in, she's like, my phone bill's like $500. I'm like, what happened? She goes, well, I was playing this Candy Crush and I had to keep buying things. But it goes on your phone bill, so you don't feel it when you're playing the game, I guess. I don't play those games, but
$500, that's a lot for a Candy Crush. I've heard of it. I have never played it.
Never played it. But yeah, I just to start to look at, though, what do I really need? What's just an extravagance or something? If you're not going to the gym right now, cancel the gym membership. If you're not using monthly services, get rid of them.
Now, how about investments? Because I know some people, they're very fearful of investment. It's scary. I don't know what to buy. For example, I remember you saying, if you can put $10 a week away.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I bartended. I started doing $10 a week, but I'm like, $10, that's nothing. I was like, you know what? Right. Honestly, I can put $40. So what I would do is every week I'd put $40 into the stock market for my kids. Now I have several $1,000s.
Right.
Because I'm like, I wish to God my dad would have bought stocks when I was a kid. I mean, my dad would have bought $200 a year in like Apple or IBM or whatever. My God, I would have probably $10-20 million, because back in those days, the stocks were trading like $1 a share.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're afraid to get into the investment, you're not sure what to invest in, but you want to get into the stock market, I would agree with you in buying something like IBM. Buy stocks that buy Disney, buy Nike, buy Apple, companies that are around. You can Google, what are the top stocks, what consistently pays dividends. I look at stocks that pay dividends, and I tend to not invest in oil companies. That's just a personal choice on my end. But there's all kinds of green stocks. There's all kinds of, if you're not sure, you can buy a mutual fund, which is a combination of lots of different kinds of stocks to sort of hedge your bets. They're a little more conservative, but just start putting the money away and don't go in and try and day trade. Don't think you're smarter than the market. Put the money in and forget about it. Put the money in, forget about it. Because if you start trying to, the market's changing, let me go be smart, you're not going to be smart. I had a doctor client. One year he made $1 million on the stock market. And I was like, man, this man is brilliant. Next year, he lost $1 million on the stock market. And I said to him, doctor, what happened? Because you know your stuff. And he goes, no, I don't. I don't know anything. I got lucky the first year. And then the second year just proved me I was lucky. He goes, I didn't do anything different. Nothing in my mindset was different from one year to the next. He goes, I was just really lucky one year and I was really bad the next year. And I was like, wow, you just lost $1 million. He's like, yeah, he's like, I'm an idiot. So it's like, don't think you're smarter than the market unless you're really in the market and you're in that world. But yeah, put $40 away, $50 away and forget about it. And that's what I did with my savings account. I created 5-6 online accounts. I had each one get paid $10, $50, and I just had them come out on Monday and Friday and every week. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wow, look, all this money's starting to accumulate. Then I started putting in more.
Yeah, one thing I love about Warren Buffett, of course, I believe now he made a big mistake selling all of his airline stocks, but he believes in buying companies that he likes. Obviously, he loves drinking Coca-Cola, so he buys Coke stock.
Right.
If you buy stocks of companies that you like Nike, you like the shoes, or you buy Apple products or something, like, for example, when my son was born in 2010, I bought one share of Apple. I paid $99 for it. Now it's at over $300 a share. I wish I would have bought a lot more.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point, because you never know where it's going to go. But you have to buy stocks of stuff you actually believe in.
And look, the 3 times that I've been given a really great tip, I've lost money on all 3 of those. So whenever somebody gives me a really great tip, I go out and do the opposite, because guaranteed I'm going to lose my money.
Yeah.
You can't lose on this one.
Yeah, because they don't know.
They don't know.
So I was going to ask you, Bob, how do you deal with success? Because, everybody deals with success in a different way. Well, what is success to you? How do you know you're successful at something?
I surround myself with people that keep me humble. I often say if people start to put me on a pedestal, or I start to believe that I belong on a pedestal, I want to have friends that will gently help me off the pedestal instead of pushing me off. So I like to have people around me that hold me accountable and don't just say yes to me, but challenge me if I'm getting a little cocky or thinking that, man, I'm a little better than. So I like to keep myself humble. I mean, I really do like to make sure that I'm not out there. Like, I'm not doing things because it's an accomplishment. I'm doing things because it's what I love. So if I'm out doing comedy, or if I'm out working with people, it's because I love working with people, not so that everybody will go, wow, he's a great facilitator. He's the best. Because if I start to live through my ego, I'm going to lose every time. So I really have worked hard to not attach my success or what people consider success to my ego. I say, wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that you had a great experience with me. I'm really all about connection. And I want to make an impact. I'm glad that you were impacted. I'm just looking to be in connection with people, because that's what feels good to me.
Yeah, that's very, very well said, because sometimes people, they're doing really well. They have quite a bit of money, but let's say, for example, you're at a pancake place eating pancakes with your friends for breakfast, and the waitress, they scan your card and sorry, it's declined. Some people like, excuse me, I have $50,000 in this account. How dare you say I don't have any money in this account? What is wrong with you? I could buy this place or whatever. Instead of doing that, maybe I'm sorry, let me call my bank real quick. There might be something wrong with my card, or maybe it's expired. I don't know.
Yeah.
But be humble.
Be humble. It's like, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to be nice to people. And I think that, again, that's where people redirect their projection of embarrassment, fear onto other people, instead of just saying, man, maybe I pulled the wrong card. Maybe I didn't make a payment. Maybe I'm not perfect. And, like when people say you're an expert, I always say, well, I'm not really an expert. I've had a lot of experiences, and here's what's worked for me. And you can check it out. And if it works for you or it resonates, awesome. And if it doesn't, there's other ways to get to where you're going. I don't like the expert model. I like the non-expert model in terms of being a leader, in terms of stepping up, because I don't know everything. I've learned a lot. I know that I don't know lots of things. I've had lots of experiences, and I hope that when people hear me or talk with me, things resonate and I can inspire people to do something different. But like, I don't have it all figured out. I'm going to be learning till the day I die, and I'm going to keep challenging myself, and I'm going to keep having people hold me accountable. And I'm just going to keep showing up.
Yeah, I mean, every single day, you just strive to be the best possible you and learn as much as you possibly can. That's the only way to get better.
It's the only way. Try to be the best version of ourselves.
Well, I was going to ask you, what are some things you think about kind of like on a daily basis, and what are some of your habits? Like, I know some people like, okay, I wake up every day at a certain time. Some people, I wake up whenever I wake up.
So I do tend to like to have a schedule. I just recently, after many, many, many years, I just recently let go of starting my morning with a trainer at 5:30 in the morning, and I actually sleep in until 6. Pretty wild. I like to have routines so that I create habits. So I like to make sure that I'm exercising every day. I like to make sure that I take time to have a little bit of meditation and just have a chance to be with myself, even if that means just listening to some music or sitting in the park. It doesn't mean I have to be chanting with bowls and stuff. I could, but just really taking a little bit of time for myself. I like to sit down in the morning and think about the things I want to accomplish. Like, here's what I need to do today. I'll even write it out. I have pads in different places of these are the people to talk to today, call this person for their birthday. I try and map all that out.
It's good.
And then I can check. And then I'll take the list. And the next day I'm like, oh, I forgot to call so-and-so. That's the first thing I'm going to do today. And so I actually try to make the most out of each of my days by actually being productive. Not that I don't occasionally have my day where I'm like, okay, I'll watch a TV show for a little bit. I'm not a big TV watcher. I'd rather be out doing stuff, but I try to plan out my day so I get the maximum value.
Yeah, I've noticed the most successful people I talk to are usually the ones, I don't watch TV. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, because I think Disney, they launched Disney Go, and I don't remember what the number was. I think it's like maybe 1/5 of the population in the United States signed up for Disney Go. It's a big number.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, that's the people. I have friends that are like, "Did you watch?" I can't even think of shows now, but oh my God, that's hilarious. But they'll say, "Oh, did you watch this? And did you watch this? And did you watch this?" And they've watched like 80 shows and they've like, how do you have the time to watch all those shows? I got things to do.
Yeah. Well, and especially now, I think with more time, there's a lot of things that you can get done, things that you've always wanted to do. Write a book like you did. Write a book.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things people have always wanted to do. They've complained that they never had time. Now's your time to do it. Instead of watching
Learn
TV.
a language, paint a picture, sculpt something. Yeah, I mean, take pictures. This is a great time. It's interesting. I was talking to somebody in LA. A lot of creative folks are really struggling right now, and they're not taking advantage of this time because they're feeling frustrated. And it is hard when you're in isolation and quarantined. At least here, we've just been re-quarantined. So it's sometimes hard to get out of that mindset, but have a buddy, somebody to hold you accountable and go out and do those things that you've been talking about you want to do. Like, make the time.
Yeah, because right now would probably be a great time to do a playwright.
Yeah, it's a good time. With that, one of the things that I say a lot is don't wait for your ship to come in, go out and build it yourself. And I think even now, like, don't wait for right now is the right moment. Don't wait till next year to write the book or to learn a language or to whatever those things you want to do. It's like, do it now.
It's important to be able to ask yourself this question next year. When people say, so what did you do in 2020?
Yeah.
I watched lots of TV. I read 100 books. I exercised. Right. I noticed a lot of people have been buying lots of bikes lately. If you go to any store, pretty much all the stores have no bikes on any of the racks, all their weight equipment. A lot of people are losing weight. They're taking good care of themselves, which I absolutely love. I mean,
I love it.
Great thing.
I love it.
What are some things that get you out of bed every single day? Like, what gets you out of the bed?
Well, literally my dog, because I have dogs purposely because I know that they want to get up in the morning and make me start my day with a walk. And so that's how I start my day is I'm up at 6 o'clock or 5:45 and I go walk for an hour. That gets me out of bed. And then I think for me, I love living life. Like, I enjoy what I do. I know it sounds crazy, but I love working with clients when we're doing tax planning and strategizing and figuring out how to help people save money. I love leading workshops and helping people have aha moments about where they've been self-sabotaging. I love getting on podcasts and talking about all the mistakes that I made and like my life journey and hearing about other people's journeys. I like to get really curious to see what's going on for other people. I love seeing people taking a stand. I know there's a lot of controversy and there's a lot of protesting going on right now. And I'm like, bring it. Let's have conversations. I'm interested in difficult conversations because I want people to learn how to stay in a conversation instead of walking away, think that's been part of the division that's going on in this country is people aren't willing to stay and hear each other. And I love life. And as long as I'm able to take a breath, I always have the opportunity to do better. And so that's, as long as I'm breathing, I'm going to keep fighting.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start to wind down here, but you just mentioned mistakes. What are 3 of the biggest mistakes you probably made in your entire life, but you are so glad you made those mistakes? At the time, it was probably really painful, but you're like, so glad I went through that, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be where I'm right now.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that was a big mistake was when I quit my first job, I still had a lot of debt. I was working for an accounting firm that I hated. I was driving to work crying, and I just hated it. And I had debt, and I didn't have a plan, and I freaking just quit. I just walked in and I said, I quit. And it took me about 4 years to recover from that, just walking away without a plan. So it's a really bad decision maybe in the moment, but I think I'm so glad that I did it, because my happiness was more important than worrying about my debt. And so I was really grateful that I actually walked away, and I ended up starting my own company, and like, it just got better from there. And so that was me taking a stand for myself, even though in the moment it looked like a really bad decision.
That's good.
I think a really bad decision I made was thinking that I would make millions of dollars being a stand-up comedian at $15 a night. But I'm glad I spent like 3 years just doing, like, that's all I did. And I had so much fun because I had it, like, it fueled my passion. It fueled, it was nourished my soul, and it made me feel alive. Then I had to get practical, because then I went through all my money and said, okay, how can I do both? How can I find something that sustains me and then also do things that nurture me? And so I'm grateful that I stayed connected to creativity and doing stand-up. I don't have to do it to survive. I do it because I love it. I like to see other people laugh, and I like to have a good time. The other big financial thing that I probably taking other people's advice on some money investments and then completely not working. And what that taught me was to learn to actually trust myself, and that if I make a mistake or if I don't do something perfectly, it's on me, and I don't have anybody to blame but myself. And I think for a long time I wanted other people to blame for things, because then I didn't have to take responsibility. And I'm glad now that I had some of those things happen, that it was so clear that I could have actually done better on my own, but I was afraid to trust myself. And I've learned to trust myself much more, and I'm much more comfortable with not being perfect and making mistakes and getting up and trying again.
The beautiful thing is, so you're in the comedy entertainment space, but you're CPA. Now you work with people in the entertainment industry.
Yes. Yeah.
But I can only imagine if you've never gone to comedy, you probably wouldn't be working with those people, right?
That's absolutely, that's absolutely true. My first probably 200 clients were comics and actors, and all my friends from acting classes, and people would call me up 5 years later. Hey, we were in an acting class together. Do you remember so-and-so? They told me to call you up. So you're right.
That's
and
wonderful.
I wouldn't be the CFO of the Comedy Store if I wasn't doing comedy, because they were in a bad situation. And Mitzi called me up. One of my friends had said, oh, Bob's a CPA. Mitzi called me and said, you have to help us. So here I am.
It's beautiful how doors just open. I know a lot of times people are scared. I don't know. But it's like when there's a door that's open, it's opening for a reason. You just have to step through that door, step through that threshold, and take a chance.
Take a risk.
And I mean, look how happy you are. And you get to work with people who are just incredible people. Obviously, they're very, very funny. I mean, I can only imagine hanging out with people who are funny all the time must be just really, really great. Especially, if you're having a bad day, just hang out with people always just laughing and telling jokes.
Yeah.
Got to be wonderful. I can only imagine.
You know what? I have a good life. I feel pretty blessed. Yeah. I have a lot of amazing clients. We have a lot of fun. I don't think of them as clients. I think of them as relationships. And I think that's, for me, the key is I don't look at them as numbers or tax returns. I look them at as human relationships that I really enjoy connecting with.
And they can tell that too. They can tell that, you want to do business with people who you generally know they care about you. I mean, that's what's very, very important. Now, for people who are listening right now, what are like about 3 really good things that you would love for them to take away from this conversation, Bob?
I think one of the things that I would say, and I think it's in the title of your podcast, is like, have your voice. Like, don't be afraid to step up and step out and take a chance and do what you want to do. Yeah, some people might be jealous. Some people might push back. Some people might try to take you down. Do it anyway. Like, live your life for yourself, not for somebody else. I would say whatever you're afraid of, go towards it. Like, march right up to it and freaking do it, because it's liberating. It's completely terrifying in the moment, and it's completely liberating. So I would just say, face your fears, embrace them, and go for it. And I think the most important thing for me is find gratitude in what you have. So many people can make you a list of what they don't have, or what they should have, or what they're going to have. Just take a few moments and look around and say, man, I've got a roof over my head. I've got people that love me. I've got food in my belly. And even if it's not a lot of food, I have some food, or I have access. Like, just really come from a place of gratitude, I think makes the whole difference. For me anyway, I just look at life so much differently than before, when I thought it was all about making sure I had the most accomplishments and looked the best on paper. And I don't really care about any of that stuff. I really care about, am I in connection with people? Am I making an impact? Am I leaving the place a little bit better than when I came in? And I think coming from a place of gratitude really helps me connect with all that.
Very, very well said. I love that. Now, last thing, if you could go back to 18, 19, 20 years old, is there anything you would change differently?
I probably wouldn't, because I think so many of the mistakes that I made and so many of the places, I think the only thing that I might do differently is I wished I had faced my fears a little bit sooner. I lived in such a place of fear for a long time that it was debilitating, and I wished I had trusted myself. But overall, I'm glad for all the mistakes that I made. I've learned a lot, and I can look back at it and laugh. I don't have any shame about it. It's like, yeah, I made some really bad choices, and I'm okay with it. I'm still here, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because I mean, the best thing to do is to learn as soon as possible, because there are people, they don't change until like 80 years old. Like, dang, if I only did this 50 years ago,
Yeah,
I'd be so much happier. So thank God you did. So Bob, where can people find the Money Nerve, and how can they find you on social media? How can they find your website? And for those people who might be listening and they're like, hey, what kind of services do you offer? Because you are a CPA. Are they able to hire you as a coach? Are they able to use you as a CPA? How does all that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a CPA firm, and we do taxes and tax consulting and financial consulting, and people can find me through themoneynerve.com. Bob@themoneynerve.com is my email address. People can find resources on the Money Nerve. I've got 3 podcasts out right now. I've got Money You Should Ask, where I'm talking with people about their life journey with money. I have a podcast called Funny Money, where a friend of mine who's a financial advisor and a comic, we sort of just do silly kinds of things, like what's the best, cheapest pet to have, or what's the best thing to buy in a stock market. We cover everything. And then the Money Nerve podcast that's coming out next month is just a resource for people that want to understand, why should I buy life insurance? What's a financial advisor? Why should you own a house? And that's more just practical information. So we have a lot of resources. And then I also have an online course called the Course to Financial Freedom, which is taking people through their emotional self-sabotage and just exploring where they get tripped up around money and just childhood beliefs and sort of that lineage. And that's all available on themoneynerve.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those places. And you can just Google my name or Money Nerve, and usually something nice, hopefully nice, comes up.
All right, sweet. What can people expect from reading your book?
really the money nerve is about trying to find our unconscious money blocks and money beliefs, and trying to figure out those places where we get physical anxiety, where we have stress in our stomachs or wherever it might be, and starting to learn, where do I get triggered, what are my self-sabotaging beliefs, and really just starting to learn how to have a healthy relationship with money, and to know what my triggers are, to know what my fears are. I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of being seen. I'm afraid that I don't deserve, other people deserve it more than I do. Whatever those things are, learning about those beliefs so that you can actually go out and be who you are, knowing where your triggers are.
That sounds like an excellent book, especially for anybody, because that's the thing, as we've discussed, whether you grew up dirt poor with literally nothing, or you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, which is not such a horrible thing, but still, everybody has fears and anxiety when it comes to money, no matter how much money they have or do not have. So yeah, great resource.
That's right. Even the $9 billion guy.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, with $1 billion, I'd be very happy, right? Yeah. All right,
I'd
Bob,
like to try.
Yeah. Well, thank you so very much for being on the Power of Your Voice podcast, man. I greatly appreciate it, Bob. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, and I wish you much success.
You're welcome.
Johnny here. Thank you for listening to the Power of Your Voice podcast. I would absolutely love to get your feedback on this episode and how it impacted you. Reach out to me on Instagram by sending a direct message to username Voice Podcast. If someone in your life could benefit from this episode, share it with them, and check out thepowerofyourvoice.com to read blogs on each podcast episode and learn more about what was discussed. And please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. This lets me know you find this show valuable, and thank you for listening.